Sure, yes. Sure, mambuis.
Cultivating altruistic intention as the seed of enlightenment, if I heard that correctly. And I'm wondering how does one cultivate altruistic intention?
Tinin kazan azugi megi achugi tsurim gola ni tudurchi dizambasra. Ani Geshema gi ta sanje gi ni ju lanaira. Ani sanje koban roi gi ju zo de ta semje ra. Shimbengi semje. Hotere son ras. Ni shimbengi semje de ni kante dubur bes.
semji teji semji
Teji semje.
다치당이 대신 심지라는데 근데 누구는 아래 너무 대신 심지라는데 근데 지레스나라 답에 지당이 대신 자체를 쳐봐지라 샤워라 지당 카드 버시요나 세 자체진라 대신 심지래 다디 근데 지레스나 아니 신 심지 탐지라 봐 삼모 땅통이 올라지라 이그 천이데 마서나 근데 신스나 젠던도 조상라 미신 랑기 트로스 치비 덤바다 충대도 치비 대신 남지 죽어야 resra 죽어 집이 쪼이지 나비 인데질 안에 가서 대신 sem지라라.
So now, when we are talking about cultivating an altruistic intention, then it is nothing other than the awakening mind of bodhicitta itself. That is the awakening mind of bodhicitta, the altruistic intention. And now, when we are talking about simply the altruistic intention, and then it really is about the scope of the motivation. The scope of the motivation, how expensive is our motivation, how accommodating is the motivation. So now when we relate this to the awakening mind of bodhicitta, then it's the all-expensive motivation, all-expensive, all-encompassing motivation, which takes into account the benefit of all sentient beings. So as such, that is the altruistic intention that one must cultivate in your spiritual practice. So now when we look at the technical definition of the awakening mind of bodhicitta, then it is important to understand three things. First, it is important to understand the nature of that motivation. What exactly is this motivation? So technically it is defined as that motivation which is aimed at the welfare and benefit of all sentient beings. And with that motivation, one develops the aspiration to achieve enlightenment. So in short, the aspiration to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. That's the altruistic motivation or altruistic intention. And that's nothing other than the awakening mind of bodhicitta. And now these are the two things, the benefit of others, and for the benefit of others, one aspires to achieve enlightenment. Now the third thing is exactly this altruistic intention is the door through which one enters the Mahayana path. So if you want to cultivate the Mahayana practice as your spiritual practice, then one must cultivate this altruistic intention.
지당한테 다 선인행한테 디실로가 싫으면도 선인 사로라. 사사라 아니 디질랑한테 단당한테 저한테네 신발을 줘야지. 아니 질랑에 되지 센데긴한테 다제냐지 센지던다 지레명아 되는 센지다 지르시오라.
So now, how to cultivate that altruistic intention? Now, for now, we won't go into it because we have some of the texts, the root text left to cover, and I think we will be able to cover the entirety of the text in the sessions tomorrow. And after we cover that, then we will look at the altruistic intention and the two methods to generate that awakening mind. One is the process of, through the process of equalizing and exchanging the self for others. The other is through what we call the 7 precepts of causes and fruit. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
How do you love?
Huh?
Like, how do you love someone? Because in current times, it's very hard to love people. So most people withdraw into themselves, and because so-called attachment issues also rise up, it's very difficult to truly be in an intimate relationship, both emotionally and socially. So you tend to maybe not express too emotions because you're afraid too many emotions, people will judge and use them against you. So how do you actually love the unconditional love which we talk about in endless, limitless love?
Tā ngā dzū ki tīngsāng ki tū dā nikab dindriji la sira, ngā dzū ki chāmbā la nē ra, lēmē ki chāmbā la ya ra, nyamlīng khande che gore bēs ra, lēmē ki chāmbā la ya ki nāmbā khande sungwa ndu juwa che gore bēs ra, kāi nā tīngsāng ki kāp su dā jītsō ki jūrim la inā re sira, mīdā mībāra ki dewa ki jūrim la inā re sira, jīk sūsū ki tsōwa dā dzō mīla besang mewe tohne shee di pe khakbo res tesang ki duzu la
Susu sengi tingi tsuwaji ju di pa shee kaal kaal
khakbo res che zang lotha nyebo la ya dawo ra di di skamo da rigi doas che zang leme ki chamba la ya jo ra di nganzo ki mida mi para la dewa ra jizo nanglo ki pazu dewa ki ju las ra namba di ngoy du juwa ra ta dende khandes che to wari che wari es
Ta limi ta chambara chida nganzo ki nde roji samya kechambara nganzo chama me imba chi chung ta ra ti ta tu na rashi ki ko ta nyeru do da ko sha sho re nga nu sho re ko ka bo re nga na bo re ko chulu de re nga chulu di ye nganzo pe pa che do da tsa ma da nganzo chama me imba chi pa che ani chama la dewa de ba da dunge me de chi ba imba che ra tene kyo la chi bo go wa na che nga la chi bo go che chang dang ching nganzu chi sajaro ji jiburo desayo na ngale chö kya cha zya ra pen chö desashi la pesha wa ina to den ro chik ma to mena ati chöran shu de la tinde so ina miri phajo de ranshi ko tsu jigle gra ko ya pojin tinde chin nga to chamba cha ra nga ma to me la do de na ani mi gi phacho shangje ra ka le khaboji 강이 지트나 저 칼러 로빠에 칼레 카보레 아니 미기 센타니 예부 차이 마라 소소 카카카 데더라.
So now when we are talking about cultivating unconditional love, first rather than talking about something like unconditional love, it is important to look at the manner in which we relate to others first. And now when we look at the manner in which we relate to others, it is indeed the case that we begin to always identify along the lines of differences, saying that he's from this country, he's from the east, I'm from the west, he's from this country, I'm from that country, and as such we fail to appreciate the shared humanity we have first, because we insist to always identify along the lines of difference. So if we are to cultivate unconditional love in our interactions and relations with others, it is important to overcome that first, that tendency we have to always identify along the lines of difference. Now, if we are to overcome this manner of identifying along the lines of differences always, it is first important to come to a radical acceptance of the shared humanity, rather than always looking at someone else as coming from a different background and so forth. When you meet someone, to always have this kind of thought that they are human beings just like me, and we are all all the same. Now, if we are able to do that, then we can also begin to reflect on the fact that not only are we humans, we are also the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. We all share this. Now, if we are able to kind of accept this, shared humanity in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, then naturally, rather than looking at someone as different, which immediately destroys any sense of intimacy or closeness that we can have, this brings us closer to others. He is a human being, she is a human being, just like me. So there is a sense of intimacy or closeness in the manner in which you relate to others. And on the basis of that, then we can begin to have a sense of concern for others' well-beings. Because just as I cherish happiness for myself, just as I want happiness for myself, others also want happiness for themselves. And just as I don't want suffering, others don't want suffering. So our actions can be guided by this kind of value. And if we do indeed place an importance on this kind of values, then these values become expressed in our actions. Small actions, for example, it could be the case that there is only one seat, and then you find it within yourself to be able to offer that seat to someone else. That's a small example. So through that kind of small acts like this, then one can begin to overcome that manner in which we always look at others as something separate from ourselves, different from ourselves.
Chini nga zo gemba la kuje che da, chunga la shangjo che da. Ra, ti yin rashi ki chili da. Gemba ina kali me tsama yidin zo, tsama yi gemba da chunga la shangjo che ba. Tonju da chesu da nyane ma che che. Ani chi chunga ji na gemba la ya zitong da tende. Zang zang mi de mi paru tende chili da. Ra.
And now it is also important that we do not forget the values of respect for elders, and similarly the values of elders showing care, love for younger ones. Because without this kind of respect for elders and love and care for younger ones, then it is very difficult for any sense of intimacy, any sense of intimacy or closeness to grow between generations.
Chidi khala nga zo mi da mi paru chambu da tsewa li ma tuwe chik karala na mi ta nga da si khala tengu me ten ji da. Ra, nga ran rita chi pe na ji ina re, penjo ina re, tab kosa ina re, wangcha ina re. Ani chigi kari ina da nga la chik susu nya chi tago ro ta kari ina yoro. Te tsama nga la yoyo sa. Tende inza nga da si khala tengu me sa lo do yo na. Rashi ki pagi dila chigi shambe da tsewa da tende ki min dibu chayo munda. Susu chingin sang. 아니 교회 엔데데나 파게 돼야 되는데라. 아니 근데 지는 가서 믿음이 바로 타는 거야 되는데라. 소소라 가래 예바이네 가지 예바이네 냠춘주 제다. 아니 가래 예바이네 더 상만 믿다 버려. 가서 가서 장사라. 단다 예나 단다 예 말아. 배는 미 가시 단다 가서 통거다. 가시라 칸바지 보고 마다지 보고 근데 예바이네. 잠자 출로 전에 키도다. 라. 잠잠나 모든 액시던트는 매번 샤도다. 가래는 딱 빠템 보지 문다. 소소로 유 단다 유바 차상 유바이네. 디 nga지제서 심만 로신. 가지 유바이네. 더 그 쉬질 유바디 야버리. 이네 디기 소소로 nga지제서 지차디 만도에서 대 패키지라. 가시 양 알로 존시고 유에서라. 가시 nga 콜 넘버 제야 예서. 미 담는 요라. 더 딱 빠템 보여 말아. 라 지비 추진지래. 기시 유바이네 처나 야버리데 디기 유바디기
Now, another manner in which there is no space for love, care and concern in our interactions and relationships with others is the manner in which we look at ourselves as independent individuals. We think of ourselves as independent individuals, self-sustaining individuals. And this is an attitude that many of us have actually, wherein we begin to look at ourselves as self-sustaining, independent individuals because of our wealth. I'm doing well financially. I'm financially independent. I am, or either on the basis of status, or and all these kind of other qualities. And if you begin to develop a strong sense of really like thinking that you are independent and self-sustaining, then this inadvertently leads to arrogance, and as such, then in your interactions with others, this arrogance becomes manifest, and as such, others wouldn't want to approach you. Others would assume the same kind of attitude, and as such, there is immediately a lack of intimacy and so forth. So as such, it is important to always assume an attitude of humility by reflecting on death and impermanence in our daily lives. That all these wealth, status, qualities, and so forth that we hold on to is in its nature impermanent, and as such, that helps us to assume an attitude of humility in our interactions with others. Otherwise, we become full of ourselves, and as such, our interactions with others does not really become meaningful and effective at all. Yes.
This answer seemed appropriate when we talked about general population, but I think most of the issues personally has always been in people who are closer. Could be your family, your mother, father. Of course, with that there's a sense of concern, but still, a lot of issues stem from that. And when, as you grow older, when you tend to have like partners, romantic partners, and close, intimate friendships as well, like best friends, close friends, even then these issues tend to stem up. So I guess it's kind of like a relationship advice from Geshema as to how to navigate these close relationships rather than a general human relationship.
What issues maybe you can specify? Just Geshema always encourages this. Try to be as clear as possible.
Like, okay, so sometimes, most of the time what happens is you want to get close to that person, you want to share that emotional vulnerability with the person, but then you also don't want to share that many emotions as to what you're feeling and what you're going through, because there's a sense of fear, of abandonment, of losing that person, of also feeling weak, sense of weakness and helplessness. So it's, again, it's all related to the self itself. So how does one feel centered with their own self when they are in intimate relationships?
Takoi dilagir nganzo dinda nganzo namju chirdangi Geshema gi lenja jo di chirdangi nganzo da mi chiso da dinde kola sungyo ras. Ta mi da mi parala ani kranzo lotha nyebo gi dewa ji ngwe ras. Pena cha shana da soso gi mi phajo chila tsewa do yu jo che ra.
Trabama palamala.
Pala amla ina da pena cha shana nyendik dige da dinde ra. Dinde da soso gi roba sanda da dinde la ani 수수기 셈나라 저기 초와 창마 시에라 신앙도 지지기요 res ra 가인선은 퍼조디기 니 단다의 시부지 시에가 제나 퍼조디기 니 베트 냠도 마데나 삼삼다고요라 퍼조디기 야 따당 칸데 요나 삼삼다고기 신앙 ra 딘데기 신앙만 보중기요 res 네 제자니 달헤메 지초와이나 창마 무스 바상치가메 베치네라 심딩기 초와 참마 셰토바지 고로스 모네체나 다 삼로직다나 소소니 다진지라 다진디기 주네니 덴데기 니 제와디아 아니 차바냠도 데요로 차기요레스라 이네다 카요라이기다 소소기 덴데 로타니오기 니 데와도지 이 나라스라 니 소소기 덴데다 신앙도 용거다 소소기 셈바노노기
로타니오라 신앙한다.
로타 예보 찍라
로타 예보는 얘기 강에 정말 라그라
말에 딱 로타 예보 창이 되죠라고 미치라
찬인도 차요 말아
년직도 디기 드리도 좀 파줘들다 시부지 시나 so Geshema is trying to make this clear, like, are you already in an intimate relationship or you want to get into an intimate relationship? Because if you are in an intimate relationship, it should be the case that you are able to share everything. 알레네 코 딘델로타 니보 마데기 줌센 코란 다가 이스 코 시게도스 파조기 네 지게라 유마요 삼삼다보 아니 파조기 아 따당 신
Pretend the hero. You still want to pretend the hero?
Pretend that?
The hero?
Oh no, I'm not that hero.
다디르다 스탕아도 미스데스이나라 다탄다 코기 디페라 코나기다 게기라 니로다 데미들라 아주 소소기지 참부로 조니토 아니 파길을 추 마티에지라 근데 인디가 담보 제바 제페 키첨보다 미카시기 담보는 나미도디 자상디 아니 나 제라 카가체디 페강이 마보다라 부고도 중나들 강이도 근데 인디 담보네 스데시 디주 시입니다 미제도들 지단데가 하고 메시라래 라 한데서 어쨌든 직스투는 집어집어 도어르면도 계기 소소기다 댕얘기 속란 다보제 내기 사놓게 따니요 말아 이내 다 소소기 직 남미로 디네서기도 깔래카보 유지래 이내야 디줄을 뜻 리모 따지체 파스니자라라 아니 녀라다 니디도 나나미 마마서 녀라 가리는 카상에 개체물 그냥 삼수 가리느라 계속 마찬에 줘봐요 말 고고 땅니 야도 호 치는 고고 땅에 야보 제일 저랑이디 때문 저를 문에 두마라 민 고고 땅에 야도 호 치는 수술라지 나와 도주에 가주에서나 디 거디버도 수도 말아 수수기 따와 사다 도단 도단 따와 가리나 파트 코랑게 디 모랑 가리나 어디 딜라다 아니 템바이나 아니 저랑이 계속 약보시느라 일 가르가르다 마음바이 미츠나 지 냠데 이나라 되게 다치 제고지라 심바야 남자 계속 마상 아니 냠도로 대부로 좀 드네잖아 아니 주마강이다 아니 소소레센라 강이 되다 주마네 메심발라 제 다나 말레엔도 드네센라 강이 되지 몸보다 라 지금 지자사 카트에서 가부 카트에서래 담보 가시나 담보 아사도체 안젤니 지지 중알레 되가라 아니 카테리고라 담보네 체주 유주서 아니 템보체네 개참보라 다이네 코랑기 깨체디 팔라 되고문들라이라 지당기 라샤네 야슈 파게디 코네 야체네 체레 마제네 마제 사마차로라 디 마제네 개만 담리가 미치고도 매바 마라 미 망보라야서 담가요라 라 제시디 심바나라 인즈 많이 되더나 니절레 똑바다 강이 기르티
So now, when you share this personal dilemma, then I think before you enter into a relationship, enter into an intimate relationship, it is important to kind of be honest and open, honest with each other, because now as a spiritually ordained nun, I cannot really attest to what exactly are the troubles and the struggles, because we, as a spiritually ordained nun, monastic, then we do not have anyone to call our own, our partners and such. We almost interact equally in the same manner with anyone who comes into we come to interact with. But I can understand that it is important that before you enter into relationship, to get to know each other first, to spend some time to know each other. And spending some time to know each other means being honest and open with each other before entering into a relationship. Otherwise, then if you immediately kind of enter into a relationship, then you are not honest and open with each other, then later on a lot of problems arise. Even if you enter into marriage, you have a child, then this has a lot of negative consequences further down along the road. So as such, it is important to be honest and open with each other. And now herein, if you are not honest and open with each other, you cannot really manipulate someone to love you. You cannot really force someone to love you, because sooner or later everything comes out in the open. Whatever you try to hide, whatever you try to hide, or whatever front you try to put on. So as such, it's important to spend some time knowing each other before you enter into an intimate relationship with others. Otherwise, it's not really a healthy relationship. And in a healthy relationship, one should be able to speak their mind, be open and honest with each other. And the best advice that I can give is not to be afraid to share who you are, not to be afraid to be honest with others about who you are, be open about who you are, because that is exactly how you come to know whether someone is a suitable partner for you or not. Otherwise, if we are always kind of held back by that fear, then it's impossible for us to have healthy interactions, healthy relationships. And even if when you do share, become vulnerable and open yourself, others are not so receptive, then that's not the end of the world. That's not your only potential partner. There are a lot of people in this world. So, as such, it is better to always be forthright, open, and honest with anyone you want to interact with, become intimate with.
지금 니만한테 중세들은 중어로 당한테 시고야지래도 미제는 이제 지유사라 생 미찍을 지가를 저러잖아 다 디마라나 수시니 된다 아무튼 중세 들어가는 중 근데도 인간 잠도 근데 가는 상당히는 상들아 사시고야 되는데 가르러래 디바이 중세 되게만 가지고 도마니 강도 지래 부주 아니 코로나 나오더서도 지기 신바지주라 아니 파마기 신바로 때 지대마주 지체 간데 지체네 근데 부디 코로나 소제는 총다 라 근데 현재 양침보더라 내용도 이내 세상 저기 쇼직네 소소다와 되는데 다지지 기시디 말아와 있는 들 진형바 차고야다 소소랑 소제고야다 semba kusuto ni changto araton kajido 근데 제 말더라 오늘 근데 최고야 가는 잠이 아니라
So now I think we need to address this because I also remember an incident, something similar like this, related to this, wherein in the surrounding village near Dolmala, there was a young guy who liked someone, and then when the parents didn't really agree to the relationship, then he went to the extent of committing suicide. So now, when we as spiritually ordained monastic think about this, then this is beyond us. Like, it doesn't make sense to us at all. That even if you do not get the desired partner in your life, that's not the end of your life. That's not the end of the world. And there are many people who actually resort to drinking, eventually fall into addiction, then they reach the point of suicide sometimes. So that's not a really healthy way of pursuing a relationship at all. So it is important that we spend some time with the people that we want to get into a relationship with, try to see if our values, interests, and so forth align. And if they do not align, that's not the end of the world. And even if they do align, if it is not possible that you can get into a relationship, then that's not also the end of the world at all.
라 빼지셔라 미데 미기 버르라 당원이 데네마 카딜리도 딜 호쇼도 다 가와도 다 가서 갈지 창바 도와서나 다 콜라 pen 거기 남도 도라 예 봐서 도라 하시라 다이네 담이를 드드치고다 아니 데네 참자 도나 아니 간데 도스 네 닌자기 다 칼로 담부 드드치마 데네만 도 아니 마길레서리 찌기 아니가 남도 도라 찌기가 아니 페칼로 바스나 된다 야지 테신도 치 셴바도 칼라서는 아디사가도 디상아디 디나네 쳇디나데 아니 지르란자 네도 제가 어가 네마도 가 척하다 되네 조이면라 지딩가 네데 마도 아니 척하라 도이면라도 라 지지는 아니 가디지 때무다사데 마시 셴바야 상이승이 총다도 근데 땅가도 군이 따와 탕고 말아 템디 군이기다 디 니망가도 시인다 군 참자도 얘기 디수들라 점점 찍지야로 지마도가 차스그라 그래서 미 단나셔나저기 미자기 더람데 되네 인지상 인자기 가상 가도나 간데도 담보 차시 삼았어라 지나이데 미츠기 나로를 디퍼를 텐디만 강이 마무 중고라 이내야 저디 수수기 따와 텐도에면데 라 라쇼데 따에 이래선 라 베드지 사노 셴바지 땅 찍 셴바지 땅 되나 아니 페지 실로 빠빠잖이라 나오더네 미츠나 냠도 슈트에 깔이 가보인데 라
So now I'm trying to relate to this from through my own experience, trying to make sense of it. Now, even as a spiritually ordained person, this kind of consideration is important with the people that we come to interact with and with the people that we spend time with. For example, let's say Anidoma and me, we decide to go on a trip together. Now, if we are to go on that trip together, we must ensure that our attitudes, our ideas, our plans for the trip align, that we have the same ideas about what we want to do on the 4 or 5 days that we spend together. So let's say that if we don't do that, then, for example, immediately we might go to Delhi together, and right from Delhi, one might say that, okay, I want to go by flight, the others say I want to go by train or taxi. There is a difference already. And even if you reach the same place eventually, then when you go there, one might begin to say that, oh, I only want to go to the pilgrimage sites. I don't want to do any sightseeing. And then one might begin to say that, oh, I only want to do want to look at the important sites. I don't want to go to the markets at all. And then similarly, a lot of this kind of differences and frictions might arise if we do not talk and communicate effectively before we make a plan. And so as such, at the end of these 4 or 5 days, it might be the case that we have to go separately. So I think it's nothing different than this hypothetical situation, the relationships that lay people enter into. They have to make sure that the attitudes, values align with each other, and we have to be forthright and open about our attitudes and values with each other before we enter into a relationship with someone else. Of course, it is the case that there are many challenges, setbacks that might present themselves in the relationship, but if the values, attitudes align, then you can weather through those challenges and setbacks. If not, then it is a little bit difficult for that relationship to survive. It's only just an infatuation with outer appearances most of the case, if we do not look at the values and attitudes of the other person.
Chitang di kasa namida razang di kenza ngema pyola do ina jagala endera soso pude bomu chi thomani phamagi dishara chitang kuni ngosing mare siga hako mare ine khaji anyamdo yapo de ni ndo kali tamu mahamago na ndi ni ya korikal theno ni yo sara tating shara shi singdra kirang zagi ya khane khare tai tai.
So now I cannot really explain this kind of intricacies of relationships because I know that in India there are a lot of arranged marriages, and then even in Tibet in the old days it was the same, that the bride and the groom don't really meet each other before the day of marriage. But then there are also cases wherein these arranged marriages become very close, intimate relationships over time. So it's impossible for me to explain the intricacies of these kind of relationships.
That dinde ina chana nije thadi thimati ni kona kale do dinde tang ngazuro thani le shre di hakumar ra ine ta chana tanda thu de ngedi kala sana chitane pe roji shana ji de ani ngara sanchu di shere mu ngegi ti kala chana de pe phen thoji hi thu ma ra susula nyanyu me ba chang gi ti kala sana ta ma ni kande roji ya muni de dinde ti kala chana de mi ke thobo thomo yora kunzu dinde jawa chung ka ngi te de ni ro ya ko cha de ni ram no yora.
So now maybe it's not really wise to seek relationship advice from monks and nuns, because even try as much as they can try to relate to your experiences, try to make sense of it and offer you some effective guidance, maybe that's not the most effective source of relationship advice. So rather than that, I would suggest that you talk to your own friends who have been in relationships, who have experiences, who have faced challenges in their relationships, and try to ask them for advice how to approach it.
Ine tra ani roji kutro ine kunzo ta jinsen roji sana tan chi la ro da ra Tende roji ma to susu gi nyamnyu de hiya mara. Michare ngi ma ngazu tende chung ane tende dale ko chang la san la yaga pe. Ine chang third diwor da no tu mara ra. Susu she wa ngi ma ngi like chang kar thiya ine chu thi la ra. Ne ngara ya ne je tu ne je gre ma tu ne gonda la ra.
So now, with that being said, a monk or a nun can try to offer some sort of guidance by reasoning with you about the manner in which you look at the relationship and the manner in which you process your emotion and so forth. But they cannot really relate to the experience itself. So as such, it is better to ask these kind of questions to your friends who have experiences. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying it's a mistake to ask questions, because as I already encouraged you before, that you can ask any kind of questions, but I also made it clear that I will try to explain and answer it to the best of my capacity. Now, this is beyond my experience.
Yeah, ko kari ne ngat ti sen kangi se sanata la ore. Kari thone ne de yo ra yan ra. Cheba.
So, of course, it is related to the manner in which we try to regulate our mind, regulate our emotions and so forth. But it takes some experience to truly relate to an experience. But I hope, did you find any of the advice I shared helpful? Little bit these pieces. Ani drama Chiglana digires, Kanun Jana digires.
So I can talk from experience, from my past life, from this life, and also as a counselor, right? So the most difficult thing in relationships is that people don't talk about their expectations to each other. So they secretly have a big expectation to the other person, and they don't tell the other person that they have this expectation. Let's put a simple example, if I may. Whatever, you are the male part of the relationship, and you have a difficult time at your job, you're coming back home, and you expect your wife to give you whatever, a nice meal, to give you a massage or whatever, but you don't talk about this, and your wife don't know that you had a really particular difficult day, and she doesn't do that, all these kind of things, and what is the result? You get angry, right? So, and you carry this grumpy little bit inside you. The next day the same thing happens, or a similar thing happens. She doesn't fulfill your expectation to your fullest. Another black seed, so to say, you're accumulating. And then when you don't talk about this, then it's exploding at one point. This is what in short version happens to a lot of relationships. So talk, communicate. That's the seed, that's the basic. Communicate properly.
Okay.
She understood it.
Yeah, take care.
Any other questions?
Maybe
all of you can offer him some advice.
Yeah, that's why I'm not in a relationship. If I'm being myself, that's why I'm not in a relationship.
I mean, if you are with somebody that you can be yourself, what is the point to be with that person? I don't know. You have to. It's communication, no? So you are hiding. You are repressing some emotion. It's not good. My opinion. So one day that repression will come in a manner of anger or I think.
Susu kari imba di ora chise nangsa gores. Susu mi khande imba jora. Ani koila na nga otinde mi la toyan shigi dusra. Tinde ina susu mandem ge ores yora. So anyong to sama. Kade ina susu kari imba di chise nangsa di che gores.
Tengani le imra. Susu mai indo do se ro da zuma tenda na yuma. Kari imba di ba de kechambra. Dinne mandi. Mandi ne susu gi jeba shi yoma ta susu khang imba di lara. Ta la ma du nya simbal ti kangi gere. Ra pena nga nga ran sele chala ji goya ji na phama chala nga ji gona gona go nga ji chinju ga nyamyu ti yara jingu do gona la ma tu chala ji thom la hi jo ji nyoy na ta nga di nyogo du ngutir la thu mara gona go di Kesi balashana tena tere mate man. Tinde dora, pet tinde roshira.
So that is exactly the reason why Geshema said that you cannot put on a front, you cannot manipulate someone else to love you for something, for something that you are not. So that is why it is important to be honest about who you are, open about who you are as a person. That is exactly what vulnerability is. And if we live with that kind of openness and honesty, then we do not really have to live with regret later on. So try to think about it in this manner, that when we are young, we were held back by a sense of fear about our parents. For example, there could be something that you want for yourself in the market, something you like, but you are afraid to tell them that I want this is something I like. And then you always live with the regret that you didn't get what you want. But if you at that point were bold enough to say, this is what I want, I like this, whether they buy it or not, that's besides the case, but you do not have to live with the regret. So it's something similar like that.
One thing that comes to mind is something that getting curious about the other person that you're interested in. Like, for example, all people have this very rich inner world. So when we have this feeling that we like them and we have certain expectations, but they're based on certain presumptions about how the other person also feels. So and what they can or cannot give. So in communication, kind of exploring, like getting curious about their inner world. Like, and sometimes I feel that what we think we want is not necessarily what we want and what will fulfill us. And if we open up in the conversation, then we discover something else, even about the person. We go beyond the image of the person and we can have some kind of an authentic connection. And maybe that's, in my experience, it's felt like sometimes that's sufficient, like that's what we want. Sometimes we just want connection. And we can also figure out like respect for their boundaries and identify a balance between our needs and their boundaries. It can get like detailed, I guess. But, yeah, something like that. Just
The loves of charity.
Related to emptiness. Yeah. What do the scriptures say about how the ultimate nature of reality and dimensional reality, how they came to be? What was before what we know now to be reality?
Is that a question or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm wondering what the scriptures say.
Sorry. Tani moi tiwarat. Nikolasa jayda samsa. Tirda danganzogi ngobinilu ngomati sra tak tombani resra. Ranguni duba maimbe tombani ra. Ni diresra sungyoras. Nina nganzogi ni tedawe tombani di tanda nganzogi ni yom to thugyo marwas. Ni tedawa di ni de nganzogi tongi towe jene ra. Ni shine ni ngobinilu tindejila juwa ya marwas. ngobinilu di tagarang roas ngonira. Oti. Tindere bes.
ngobinilu kora rashi ta ngara zu lo to ma da zu lo gi ta ka se shadira tang ma dang chenra ma to ngobinilu kora la joy.
So the true nature of reality is abiding in its nature. True nature of reality doesn't change the moment when we realize it. The true nature of reality is reality itself. It's unchanging. It has always been so. It will always continue to be so, whether we realize it, whether we perceive it or not.
To ma to ngara zu lo di jangba che chun da nyanyun che chun da 소소기 무슨 말이라라.
So whether we realize it or not depends on our own effort, depends on our own practice.
야, 콜리지 뭐지 시스터리.
Maybe we pick one. Yeah.
So sentient beings are empty of intrinsic nature. At the same time, we also have the innate desire to be happy and not suffer. So is this intrinsic nature or a dependent arising?
Depending
And
on
why?
us. Dini duari dusunje tanjesra ani rangshingi madubarwasta. Rangmane madubaras. Ina yansra nganzola da ni tumunjira tenjigi dobadoji yorwas.
도바.
Karer dewa deba dongye meduwa. Dewa deba dongye meduwa di ini tenjigi rangshingi dubagi doba marabes.
라시기야, 데 라시 두바르라라.
Rangshingi duba marabes di doba.
타팅 가서 라다이라 팅 가서네 칼로 라시기 이네 파기 응을 데마 두바데 말다. 지당 가서 라시기 칼로 가서 내가 라시로 차이다. 라. 데 라시기 내셔럴 요라 워데 이네 파기 라시기 페 데마 두바 파기 응을 츠투바데 요라라나. 아이데 데바 마 두바라.
So it is important that when we use terms like innate and ingrained, we are not effectively referring to inherently. This is not what we are referring to. Innate and ingrained means that it is so imbibed within us that it almost becomes a natural part of who we are.
라시 두바르라 찰리로즈다. 라.
So there is a level of subtlety between the way in which we use the term innate or ingrained and inherent.
페나 페샤네 메드즈야 바르에 추니다. 슈틀라도에 추니 라시지라 거데. 야디 데마 두바 라시 두바랑 두바레 라오마라.
So maybe you can try to think about it in this manner. We say that it is the innate characteristic of a fire to burn. It is the innate characteristic of a water to flow downwards. But we do not say that it is the inherent characteristic of a fire to burn. It is the inherent characteristic of a water to flow down. That's not what we say.
One follow-up question. So I'm just curious to know then what are the causes and conditions for this desire to be happy shared by all?
Tene tedawe enlenji jidaba tumungi daba jora mi dewa deba da dungye me deba gi deba desra ane di ane jujen kharila tene chungi yores.
데와데바다 등이 무데바다. 아. 데와데바다 등이 문데바다 지제 가를 땐죠. 때도 빼 갈레카오도 뒤도하던 건데 라. 고라시 지난주 나라즈가 제바치시면 등이드는 따찍 등일도 찍 마데와지 지니들 가서 가기입니다. 라. 기불에 참아 가기다. 라. 따디기 주 가르는 가서 간라고. 따 저왕 한마기 내려나 공발라고나. 지단에 계속 저저서 찍 레미게와 제라 가드니 되네요. 아. 티 지제데 가르라나 따뜻한데 랑시 로즈르다. 랑시 대화를 가와다 두냐나 마가와. 아. 지금 들라는 게 똑달라도.
Now, this is indeed a very, very difficult question if we think carefully about it. Why exactly is the case that we naturally want happiness and we naturally want to avoid suffering? Because we cannot really pinpoint to one cause and say that this is the reason that we naturally want happiness and naturally don't want suffering. But even with that being said, sometimes it is strange when we look at the way in which we take some sort of pleasure in engaging in non-virtuous actions too. Understanding that engaging in non-virtuous actions in effect does bring us suffering.
How few questions I was searching how is primordial awareness understood in relation with dependent origination?
Tene nganzogi yishi namda la jora. Yishi. Yishi.
예시.
Yishi la di ta yangda be yishi namda yishi la ya. Tida ani nganzogi tende la jora. Teni ne dewa khari yores.
덴데데 예시니. 덴데레 가서 다 가래네 최 찍기를 덴데라. 배는 가라지네 수수 라바지 시원에 수수 파말라 덴데 빙겔라 덴데 초발라 덴데 라. 지 가래네 가서 지 사체 면은 좋아하실 참만 덴데라. 덴데질레 덴데라. 예실레데 가르스나 지당이 배는 가서기 시바디 고는 패네. 라. 타 배는 돈이 우선도 또 도에 덴데기 시바질 아니 예실. Yeni maybe Shibala, Kono maybe Shibara Raja.
So now, when we are talking about interdependence, then at a gross level, we can begin to appreciate interdependence in society, in our relationships, in our interactions, and so forth. Now, when we are talking about primordial awareness, herein primordial refers to the innate quality of the awareness itself, being pure and luminescent. And now, in order for us to realize that innate quality of awareness, then one must cultivate a spiritual practice to eventually actualize this pure awareness, which helps us to perceive emptiness or true nature as it is.
Could you share something about these practices?
Tene tedawe nganzo ki yishi dingwen du juwa lasra, ani nyamlendo kharichigyo res.
Yishi Yishi tango the Jola, and Penangazo Tambukadan, Romana Shiki, Penny Jason Pashitu, Soba Jang, Ra, and Salang the Naya to Jang. That the day Kali, Kalimambushi Jang, and look on the Pegora, Lodi to the Serra Serra, Sesatan. The Nate Tamata and Tende Yishi, the Yishi on the Jira, Penatoni of Yishi, Pedro Shina. They'll have it on the singing, as Tony La Cala, send the Jin Serra some of them started to
So now, if we look at something like primordial awareness, then at this point we can only have an estimation of what exactly is primordial awareness or pure awareness. But we do understand the manner in which this primordial or pure awareness is actualized, as we discussed before, through the practice of the 6 perfections. Generosity, forbearance, ethics, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, and so forth. And then we also discussed the 10 grounds. By cultivating our spiritual practices and developing it through these 10 grounds, then there comes a point when we are able to embody that pure awareness itself. At that point, we are able to perceive the true nature of reality as it is, empty of any inherent existence. Now, at this point, we only have an estimation of what exactly is that emptiness of inherent existence.
And the fully
More
awakened.
treasures, records. What's it to me?
More mutuni chirochidas, teaching it
Okay.
Because it's not about emptiness.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, so this is just a confirmation that fully awakened beings are always in this space of when they're seeing reality as it is all the time. That would be a fully realized being, and that would be a fully realized being who is seeing it all the time. And this is something if you could just confirm. And secondly, actually, I wanted to ask about body and energy imbalances. Something, in a sense, with certain, I can call glimpses or meditation experiences, when we are meditating on who am I, or some kind of such meditation experiences, or even if they might happen out of the blue, but certain energy imbalances that can happen in the body post this sort of seeing of.
As a consequence of meditation.
Yeah, as a consequence of meditation on emptiness, and not something necessarily prolonged, but I was just wondering, for example, if we feel that it's a glimpse into the true nature, or which can be just momentarily in a meditation experiences, in a few meditation experiences. So just trying to understand how it can feel very disorienting in the body, and it can feel like a disembodiment, but temporarily, or even the conception of the body gets questioned, so that experience can just feel like, where am I, and those sort of things. So I just wanted to understand how to balance it in terms of are there
더 모티와드 디르 당보디 아니 직땡케 속에 있으라 아니 당보디 티스 티와메 있으라 땡케 속에 모랑기 고도디 따다 되면 되스라 아니 대다웨 아니 박베지부라 아니 뉴몽 다 디바 타다 장 심베 박베지부 되속이 있으라 무분일로디 치마지시라 무분일로 치마지신 뒤딱도 도게로 왔어 디레레바 다 디네 네 티와신다 디르 당간조기 르다니 짤롱기 되어지라 곰잡에 주림라 르단 짤롱기 되어티스라 곰 동반이다보다라 아니 나수레라 된데다 동반이다 제 곰자임도 좀 봤으라 아니 르부나라 주에 롱지어라 딜이 아니 찬유보 마차야 된대 곰잡에 징게라 갑드드 좀 아니 수불라 초와 메디와 용야 라 갑드드 좀 아니 수불라 초와 메디와 용야 아니 셈나라야 난다다고 용야 텐데 아니 용기어레 베스라 계시 텐데 용기에나 대다웨 아니 수분한기 짤롱 차녀보 마용에 되라 아니 동네 대다웨 용와디 동네 간데치고레 베스
네 지난 가도 곰전에 sen 시와 차야다 르르르 차야라 가시야 곰다 마시 삼단다 마시네 잠자 추니로 된도 요요다 다 되네 인디가라 지단이 곰자들랑 가시마 뒤주도 처럼 보자게 뺏게 쳐보다 곰다 뭐 정도가라 대사도 거유도 장마야 보체 셔바로 가르샹에나 샹라 아니 곰자들 남배들 몸시다 대사 자미 같이 나간도 바이도 남서 곰자 쳐다 오늘 곰자나 마버지야라 왜 거기 되치는 몸버디 다시 라야 더 참아라 안디 대사도 거유도 자 봐서 아니 지금 서서히 지금 그바로 가래 있는데 샤 아니 지금 서서히 라마라 가르 참아도 될에 몇 번째 되니 신의 곰자죠 대사 거유 절로야 때 도로 안 되는 데서 뭐로 아니 루창보 샤와 아니 제딩아 지겐라 자오라 민하제 파발라야 다 뭐부죠 라 대신에 곰 아니 지곰 지 템보야 보내 두고서라 지탐만디 마데데 되어이나 셈바데 디가라 반데 무투 근데 마투 투지 우두저 뭐부지 쳐이네 지라연 살라 강이 티야 되는 차면서라 그래서 곰 제디가라 뒤주 tun두tun두게 뭐부치고 라야죠 담보 까망아 지 니니체 빼는 강의로 튀는 샤 심바 우주로 자가지 jel지에 진이모도 차이라
So now even though it is the general expectation and it is indeed the experience that through effective meditative practice one begins to experience calm, peace and abide in that calm and peace, but it is also the case that many people become disoriented, become even all the more anxious as a consequence of trying to meditate. But now herein, it is not exactly a consequence of effective meditation. It is a consequence of ineffective meditation. So now, from a Buddhist perspective, there is a lot of preparation that goes before one actually cultivates a meditative practice. Even before one engages in one session, even before one pursues meditation practice, there is a lot of preparation, prerequisites one must cultivate. So one of the most important prerequisites is to have received instructions on how to actually meditate. Now, in this day and age, people just meditate without any instruction. All they need is an empty temple and they begin to meditate. And then their experience maybe is not the best. They become disoriented, and then their mental clarity and stability actually begins to suffer rather than becoming developed better over time. Now this comes from maybe not having received and not practicing according to instructions. So if we look at the experience of imbalance in energy, then maybe it is first important to look at the instruction regarding how to conduct oneself physically, how to conduct oneself in a meditation session. So there are like 7 sets of instructions about how one should keep the spines straight. The meditation mat should be a little bit higher behind, a little bit low, so that the body is comfortable. And then the gates, the eye shouldn't be totally closed. It should be half open, half closed. Should rest naturally around the general area of the nose. The tongue must be kept on the roof of the mouth. And there are sets of instructions like this, which in effect are instructions to help us to regulate the energy channels to ensure that the energies flow uninterrupted when we are meditating. Now, more importantly, when you begin to follow these instructions, then we are also taught how to conduct a session, the length of session. As beginners, it is advised that one should not immediately hope to meditate for long stretches of time, but to keep the sessions as short but as effective as possible. So initially, do not immediately meditate for half an hour and so forth. Try to meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and to learn to break the session when it's going good, not to pursue that experience to its end, but to learn to let go of a session, to break a session when it's going good, because this helps us to approach the next session with a sense of enthusiasm. So there are a lot of instructions. So if you follow the instructions well, then it helps us to address this kind of disorienting sensations and experiences.
Correct, Vashil.
Yeah, so maybe we make time for your question.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is about envy.
Envy?
We talked one day, the affliction of envy, and the other is the paramita of ethic, no? So it comes from my experience that all my life, the question is why being highly compassionate and helping others, seeing through the other, the life of the other, everything, triggers or attracts hidden envy. And at the point that the other wants to extinguish your light, it comes one point that is like an attack only being yourself, because you are yourself. In these days, I've had the answer, but I want to know, we can share later, the perspective from the Buddhist perspective of that.
And then the second question?
The second is about ethic, and I'm very worried because the two are related for me, because envy, I think, makes the other to, nowadays with technology, not to be ethic and to know what you are doing, what you are, spying, all this kind of thing that is happening nowadays with the technology. And I'm very worried about the karma that is making in ourselves, in the humanity, which is a karma in the future, because I think technology, the power of technology is increasing, it's like we are a human being with a long leg, very powerful in technology, but a short one, very poor in spirituality, And how this karma, because also technology, people, talking in the phones that sometimes they are not themselves, they are saying something that they are not. I mean, it creates like they are polluting our technology in general. And if we are creating a new karma with that.
네 저니스라 아니 당보디 착도단 저와이 줘라 니버딩 안저기다 퍼진 착도
알레오 차도
미싱기 소소를 추차도치에 미싱기 차도치에 줘라 베나차샤나다 고랑기 용화 줄라 이나스라 그드이나 미신라 직 sem바상보치에 펜토에체 미신라 펜심장 아니 카요라요기 펜도치에 닝지 장에 잠바고메 근데 제나스라 고랑기 냠뇽라 랑싱기여라 아니 미신다 가시지기 아니 차도치기도 수라 디 용화 숙침보 중송스라 제자 아니 디 차도 제고에기 줌생 카레스라 아니 탁도 랑싱기 다 탁도 지치기도 와서 미신다기 아니 소소기 아니 추진 냠네 지도 좀 받은 데다위기 냠네디 동랭 칸데 채고레스 다 낭쇼기라나 칸데라기 레스라 아니 니바디 다가랑 아니 간조기 땅 간조기 수준 양다 봐 숭어야 이나스라 아니 란줄라야 아니 란줄라야 카르스 컬러레 아니 뉴몬데 마치바 라 아니 테나 신신라야 아니 뉴몬도 주마주바 데 지고로와스 이나야 다 대상게 뒤즈나다 취제도 야르제 쇼도데라스 제자니 간조기 취제 야르제 드로체타나 취제 디코랑이 간조다 레냐 바 쇼사이게 데 라자라 주두두스 타자도다 아니 데델라 주네라 아니 간조기 야가지 지기에 삼나야스라 미신다기야 차도 체행고다 스텔라 라 근데 대 미신다기에 심주 마투와 차야 라 심주 추르야 된데 차기도 왔어 제장 안조 아니 미라이디 캄바링부 아니 베트 추제다 된데 야르지 시부도데나 최조토는 냠네라이디 베타 멤버로 왔어 제장 아니 추제 코랑 아니 레냐바사이기 주지라 주두구두스라 그래서 동랭 칸데 치고래 베스
그래 키랑기라 코랑기 미래 약고치 삼바잠보치 젠페시에도 빼아거라 티치랑 원래 저버제고야 개 꾸지마 저랑 노리 말처럼 약고치 지도거라 다 차도 진이나 차도 진이 코랑이 쥐어라 라 다디 이제 코랑 산노게 네츠기 만다네 추랑기 약고치 바나시 코라치 미투디가라 아니 차도 지기지라 텔레치랑기 동네도 개고 치고야 말에 결혼은 좋아마다네 미투니 그 미츠드는 간 투두지 야부치 미투는데 개정거라 라 지단기 내가 야부치는 가니용그래 뭐가니용그래 소소기 로다 참바렘바 야부지나 미투는도 파쇼기 미 제단 타동 댄스 진이들 딴 수준 좋았다는 말. 대치 들아. 다 니바들라 갈로 코랑이 주릉도 야부 송와이나 지단 영어 주릉라에 뺏게 참보라. 지단 가서 팀이 주다 뮤지 사실라라오라. 주릉선이데 시야부지 여바이나 아니 디가랑 저게 소소기 지기 잠비 연대이나 가린 똑바제나 주릉라라리 그래라. 빼는 아주 사실을 빼셔. 사실 야부 신가 야부 주나 아니 디가라 아니 데트로 가르답나 야보라이고라 신가 야보면 도루로도 지 잘로솔로드네 여와이나 디가라 던도 가르답나 책임이다 제상 안들라 담보는 수족이 트름도 야보지면 야보면나 디가라 수족이 지글바는 가르쳐와이나 다다지레 두고 말해서 트름도 뺏게 좀 해라오라 다 주제를 소바디 간주기 컨트롤제 기지로 다 미겨와 사이 기지로 책들라라 지단기 주제를 따서 니요다 라 주제를 주제 간주 주제가 총완지 줘야마 간주 주제를 파완지고라 라 소소를 고디 표제 따라 빼나 간주 지 남도이네 모델인데 간주 펜토도 주제로 아니 가바에나 펜토고 라 근데 인디가 간주기 소소를 고추대 표제 땅 아니 양 점점 간주 딜버 뒤주바 트로다 레벨로니 제 뒤주바 나이 제이지나 소소 가야라 라 근데 간주 라고 이러면 주제기 가 표제 땅으로는 쓸래요 말아 나랑 저기 밥이 딱 맞다라고라. 근데 이디가라 디가라 소소기 거쳐대 아니 표시 딱 아니 신발 먹어야 다 담담 거 어디는 아니 양아 저도 저라던데. 라. 내가 저라라리 내가 저라봐도 돼.
Now it is indeed very commendable that you engage in altruistic activities, you try to help others and so forth. You should never lose hope and you should never become discouraged in this. Because even when others become envious, jealous and so forth, you should look at that as immaturity on their part, and you should look at that as their own frustration boiling over, that they cannot do the same things that you are doing. And as such, you should not have any kind of mark on your conscience because of that at all, because what you are doing, it's pure with your own conscience. So as long as that is there, you shouldn't really become too bothered about other people's immaturity, other people's boiling frustration. You should continue to do what sits well with your own conscience. Now, with regards to your question about ethical conduct, then in Buddhism we say that ethical conduct is the foundation of all qualities, both immutable and mutable qualities. All the realizations that we hope to achieve, it's on the basis of ethical conduct. So in Buddhism we say it is the foundational ground of all realization and qualities. So similarly, try to think about it in this manner. If there is a ground, a soil, which is littered with stones, pebbles and so forth, even if you plant something, you cannot expect it to grow. But as opposed to that, if the soil itself is very fertile, then you can begin to plant anything. So that fertile soil is ethics. And now with regards to technology, we should understand that technology itself doesn't dictate our ethics. Ethics is something that is cultivated personally, right? So if we think carefully about it, the manner in which we use technology is almost as if technology is overpowering us. The technology is almost using us rather than us human beings overpowering technology, us human beings using technology. It almost becomes the case that human beings are being used by technology. Now that's the sad thing. It should be the case that human beings are able to exercise control over technology. Now, why exactly are we not able to exercise true control over technology? Because of a lack of ethics. If you have a strong sense of ethics, then you know that when you are distracted, you know when something inspires hate, you know when something detracts you, makes you distracted, scatters your attention. So as such, it really is in our hands how we use technology. And our ethics, our sense of ethics can really help us to use technology more meaningfully. So I'll give you a small example. Right now, none of the participants have their phone in their hand. Okay, he does actually. No, anyways, but still, we chose not to bring our phones in the session because we want to listen to the teachings. That's our ethical sense of conduct guiding us not to bring our phones. But maybe this is not the case normally. We bring our phones wherever we go. And as such, our phones almost dictate our movements sometimes. You are going somewhere, you are saying that you want to go up, and then when you have your phone with you, then you receive a message from somewhere else, and then you have to change direction. So it's almost as if the phone dictates our movements. Now, with this small example, we come to understand it's totally in our hands whether we let it dictate us or not. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because my question about ethics was more, I'm worried that humanity, some professions, like journalists, because information is money for them, they don't care about to be inside the life of somebody, to go inside the messages, the privacy of somebody, and they do this normally, like drinking water. So if all these professions do this, which is the future of as a people consciousness, we are making karma because they are not their conduct is not ethical.
Mogi dagi sujum gola tiwa tikwe didins tesanganzo that sargubado inaisra sujum yagna baji yomaris konzola kulung pesha goras konzola nizu gorang pesha ras cheza nizu damenda yilamenda thama trying goresra migi gerla kechati twengo bongone karere do deche mada chene nizu chudungdung yora damenda tongsha dasma tende tamin dizama migi ni semnala phajai thagarang shagi das mimambo chigi chezane di manso ki ta maung gi nedang la dizamo khonzo gi da soishagi das shukchin boyo ras 제단 대종 안쪽이 동랭 한데 채워려 버렸어.
이제 이번가 베베 산지들 하신 얘기야. 가시베 좀으로 시는 꼭 따그러미 이 따서기 앱 걸어 거저셔. 자. 네가 우두 전에 그 담보네 야버지 신이 매바 하거나 네 많이네 야가도. 자. 다 단도 뭐 갈라다 돌레디 갈라나. 근데 알마오 발라데 이게 좀 마보지 찹되나. 강이 됐으라 거라.
니 안조 레 녀바사인 거라서. 미 망보기여라 다가랑 삼기라다. 네츠 일라 메나데 뎀바 젠도라. 제자.
제가 다 그디 가라서 년이 저기 산주카 찌니 들으라 따니 계시 든데 저라로 지중 시고야지나 파르파르 좀 가서 년 고야 그래요 말라 다 찌야 nen가를 두트나 먼저들 남사 이 마치니 라 오늘 레드 파 산주 셴바나 뜻니 근데 제 계셔문이라 아니 산주지 파기 실레와다 남사 아저 셴바 마치에서 고야 말라 그래서 산주 아르시다 자샤주 있는 자도 마시 루다 산주를 빼야 사우 안데 걸 빠르자지나 빠르서 마시나 사우 진주 마로 진주는 빼 첨부서 근데 소다 미는 찌 통이나 장가 마다 아주 사틀레 천재진에 심발라 마데와든데 소마 갈래 찌바친라.
So I had a similar experience because even within the Tibetan society there's a lot of conflict, a lot of news that comes about, and then there are a lot of fake information also online about conflicts, about situations and news and so forth. So at one point I deleted the app itself, because I don't want to be bombarded with this kind of things all the time. And now it is important that we understand that we should be mindful about the manner in which we consume information in this day and age. We should understand that we cannot take everything at face value, all the news, all the information that we consume. As such, we should be educated enough to think critically about these information that we consume, and not to always consume information from only one source and hold that to be true, but to compare different sources to see what's the different information, different perspective, different ideas about the same news. And it is also important to understand that news media, by its nature, is quite exaggerative. They begin to exaggerate a lot of things because they have to grab the attention of consumers. So it might be the case that if 10% of what they are saying is true, then maybe 99% is just projection and exaggeration. So as consumers of information, we must be critical enough to understand this.
저는 그 내치 야프로 있는 것도 시에 챙겨라. 내치 자르저르지게 소소 제법 하마고 있는데 근데 레알라는 파츠 시에 맞으니야라. 그디 주마전이들 그거라. 짱 칼로라. 그거 되고. 주마신이들 잡지 쳐라. 태가서 맞으니야. 대치제 땡겨라다 이간저 지 메라도 타도로 치네 지 그러나들 진이 둘러서. 들레 개고 말았어. 저는 메라 저랑 야부 제와들 때는 타도 진이나 저랑이야 야부친 제바들 때는 가와친이야 마메라. 그는 아주 레이다. 수수그런 시 때문에 그랬어. 때베가 민지는 해베가 민지신. 가서 랑기 인데레네 바테네.
지우다 베치니.
지우다. 때빼야보다 더 삼다나라. 근데 수수 가르치니에는 수수 sembal레르.
So now, with that being said, as consumers of information, we need to be critical about the manner in which we consume information, but also we also have a responsibility on the manner in which we share information also, because we share a lot of things online. So it is important that we critically analyze the news, the information before we share it to other people. Because if we share mindlessly, then we are in effect propagating the same kind of misinformation, the same kind of fake news and so forth. And now, with regards to the first question about how others become envious and so forth, it is important to reflect on this too, that just as there are some people who become envious of what you are doing, then there are also other people who rejoice, who appreciate what you are doing. This is important to remember, to not lose perspective, thinking only about those who are envious, but to also appreciate that there are people who also appreciate, rejoice in what you are doing. And in Tibetan, we have a saying from a master who says that not to become overly joyous when someone praises you, not to become overly sad when someone criticizes you, but to abide in your own actions, in your own qualities. That is the true mark of a learned one. That is the true mark of a practitioner.
That's I need some shower.
So we stop here.
Come on, German, she. German. That's all. Then it's a teaching.
We end this session with a dedication prayer. Page number 31. Rinpoche maje pana che jojin cheba nyamba memba yang gone gondo pewa shu jidar chenpa dan gundo zambo deyang dejin dem deda kunje jezo dalo je gewa deda tangje ratu ngo jawa tamje je ngowa kala chodo ngaba de dage gewe tsa de gunjang zambo cheche ratu ngowa je tamje dedan denjo je ngendo tamje tado tongwa ta chanjo senpa gona sujo pa deda kunje molam dup chu che.
That's all.
Okay, thank you everyone. See you tomorrow.